These are the hidden tragedies behind Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium who built a fortune talking to the dead but lost nearly everything that mattered in her personal life. At 58, the woman who claims to bring peace to grieving families has lived through heartbreak that would devastate anyone. You know Theresa Caputo as the big-haired, long-nailed psychic who dominated TLC for 14 seasons. You've seen her dramatic readings, her emotional clients, and her claim to communicate with spirits from beyond. What you haven't seen is the devastating personal cost of her fame, the anxiety disorder that nearly destroyed her life, and the marriage that crumbled under the weight of celebrity. Born on June 10, 1967, in Hicksville, Long Island, Theresa's troubles began when she was just 4 years old. That's when she first started seeing, sensing, and feeling what she calls spirits. For a little girl though, these weren't mystical gifts, they were terrifying experiences that isolated her from other children and set the stage for decades of suffering. As Theresa grew up, these spiritual encounters didn't fade away like childhood fears. They intensified into something much darker. By her early 20s, the constant influx of what she believed were spiritual communications had triggered severe anxiety attacks that completely derailed her life. The panic was so paralyzing that she couldn't attend college, turned down job opportunities in New York City because she was terrified of subways and elevators, and basically stopped living. Her ex-husband Larry Caputo remembers those dark days vividly. Sometimes we'd go out with another couple to dinner and we would be in the car, and all of a sudden Theresa would have one of her panic attacks and scare the hell out of the people in the back seat, he recalls. At the time, it was a little embarrassing for me. But embarrassment was nothing compared to what Theresa was experiencing internally. She describes feeling like someone was choking her when she walked through stores, sensing overwhelming energy in buildings that made it impossible to function normally. I could barely leave my house because of my anxiety, she revealed to 068 magazine. I would walk into a building and just feel everything in there. The second I removed myself from those situations is when I felt better. This wasn't garden-variety social anxiety. This was a debilitating condition that kept her prisoner in her own home for years. Her mother, desperate to help her daughter, referred Theresa to Pat Longo, a spiritual healer who would change everything. After just one session, Longo identified that Theresa's anxiety was caused by suppressed spiritual energy. He taught her how to channel spirits through chakras and get them to communicate with words, but it took 5 grueling years of training before she was ready to accept what she calls her gift. In 1989, Theresa married Larry Caputo after 2 years of dating. They seemed like the perfect Long Island couple, Larry working hard to provide for the family while Theresa slowly began offering private readings to friends and family members. They welcomed their son Larry Jr. on October 3, 1990, followed by daughter Victoria on September 27, 1994. For a while, life seemed to stabilize. But September 11, 2001 became another turning point that would ultimately contribute to the unraveling of everything Theresa held dear. After the World Trade Center attacks, she had what she describes as a spiritual experience, where I was told that this was my soul's journey, that I had the gift to be able to give peace to people and be able to move on after the loss of a loved one. This spiritual calling pushed Theresa to commit fully to her mediumship work. By 2011, TLC came calling with an offer that seemed like a dream come true, her own reality show called Long Island Medium. The show premiered on September 25, 2011, and quickly became a ratings juggernaut, attracting over 2.6 million viewers for season premieres and dominating cable primetime. Theresa was making $25,000 per episode. Over 175 episodes, that added up to more than $4 million. She was charging between $50 and $175 for readings, with some sources reporting she commanded up to $400 for a 30-minute session. The girl who couldn't leave her house was now traveling the country, performing for sold-out audiences and building a media empire. But fame came with a devastating price that nobody saw coming. As Theresa's career exploded, her marriage imploded. Larry began feeling like he'd lost his wife to the cameras, the constant travel, and the demands of celebrity. "I think a lot of the frustration has to do with us not spending the time together anymore," he admitted during the show's season 17 finale in December 2017. "Along with that comes the lack of communication, so it's like losing your best friend. It's hard." The irony is heartbreaking. While Theresa was helping families connect with their departed loved ones, she was losing connection with her living husband. The woman who claimed to heal others was watching her own family fall apart in real time, broadcast on national television for millions to witness. On December 3, 2017, after 28 years of marriage, Theresa and Larry announced their separation. The news devastated fans who had watched their relationship for 6 years on television. For the couple though, this had been building for much longer. Larry later revealed that the show had changed their dynamic completely, stealing the intimate moments and quiet time that had sustained their relationship for decades. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Theresa filed for divorce on April 16, 2018, and it was finalized by December of that year. Larry, broken and seeking a fresh start, moved across the country to California. The man who had supported Theresa through her darkest anxiety-filled days, who had been by her side as she built her career, was now 3,000 miles away, essentially a stranger. Theresa's reflection on the divorce reveals the depth of her pain. "I'm grieving my 30, almost 34 years, with Larry. This is a grieving process, but things weren't the same that they were 34 years ago. So, of course, I miss that aspect." The woman who claims to communicate with the dead was now grieving the death of her own marriage. But personal tragedy wasn't the only storm Theresa weathered. From the moment she stepped into the spotlight, skeptics and critics launched relentless attacks on her credibility. In April 2012, the James Randi Educational Foundation awarded her the Pegasus Award, a tongue-in-cheek honor designed to expose what they considered paranormal fraud. The accusations were brutal and specific. Skeptical investigator Mark Edward conducted a sting operation for Inside Edition in 2012, claiming that Theresa used classic cold reading techniques to manipulate audiences. On TV, she's almost always dead right, but at her live shows, we watched her strike out time and again, the Inside Edition report revealed. Private investigator Ron Thibault was even more vicious in his assessment, telling Radar Online, "Theresa is like a vulture preying on the most vulnerable." Critics accused her of using staff members to gather information before shows, of planting audience members who she'd already read for, and of making outlandish demands like spending 45 minutes alone with audiences before tapings. The attacks weren't just professional, they were deeply personal. Howard Stern banned her from his show after what he considered unreasonable pre-show requests. Magician and skeptic Chris Angel offered a $1 million challenge to prove her abilities. Every public appearance became a potential ambush by critics ready to expose what they saw as elaborate fraud. Imagine living with that level of scrutiny while simultaneously dealing with divorce, anxiety, and the pressure to maintain a public persona. Theresa couldn't grieve privately or process her pain away from cameras and critics. Every emotional moment became fodder for tabloids and skeptics who questioned whether even her tears were authentic. The isolation must have been crushing. The woman who claimed to connect people with their lost loved ones found herself increasingly disconnected from the living world around her. Her marriage was over, her ex-husband had moved across the country, and half the world thought she was a fraud preying on grieving families. In 2019, after 14 seasons and 175 episodes, Long Island Medium came to an end. The show that had made Theresa famous and wealthy had also contributed to destroying her marriage and subjecting her to years of public ridicule. As the cameras stopped rolling, she was left to rebuild her life at age 52, starting over in many ways. But Theresa's story isn't just one of loss and tragedy. It's also about resilience and the human capacity to find joy even after devastating setbacks. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, she found unexpected love again. While she keeps her new boyfriend's identity private, she's described how the pandemic actually brought them together when they decided to quarantine as an exclusive couple. "We welcomed him into the bubble and that's where we decided to be exclusive," she revealed on People's Podcast in 2021. So it was kind of unexpected, just like the pandemic. For someone who had lost faith in romantic love, this new relationship represents hope and healing. Theresa has also found immense joy in becoming a grandmother. Her daughter Victoria married Michael Mastrandrea in 2021, and they welcomed Theresa's first grandchild, Michelina Rose, on February 22, 2022. Her son Larry Jr. married Leah Munch in a beautiful ceremony at Lake Como, Italy on June 10, 2023, ironically on Theresa's 56th birthday. They welcomed son Nico in September 2024. Most recently, in March 2025, Theresa celebrated the birth of her third grandchild, Meadow Sky. At 58, she's experiencing the pure joy of being a grandmother, something that might not have been possible if she hadn't survived the darkest periods of her life. The woman who once couldn't leave her house due to anxiety is now back on television with Theresa Caputo, Raising Spirits, which premiered on Lifetime in January 2024. She continues touring nationally, performing for audiences who find comfort in her messages. Whether you believe in her abilities or not, there's no denying that she provides something valuable to people who are grieving. "It doesn't matter to me if people believe in what I do," Theresa told the Chicago Tribune. "I want people to believe in themselves and to know that their departed loved ones are still with them. They just want to know that their loved ones are okay in the spirit world." That philosophy has probably helped her survive her own tragedies. The anxiety that once imprisoned her, the divorce that shattered her world, the constant criticism that questioned her integrity, she's endured it all and found ways to rebuild and continue serving others. Theresa still lives in the same 2,819 square foot home in Hicksville that she purchased with Larry in 1988 for $160,000. The house is now worth over $780,000, complete with a pool, hot tub, and koi pond. More importantly, she lives next door to her aging parents, allowing her to care for them in their final years. The tragedy of Theresa Caputo isn't just one story, it's multiple heartbreaks layered over decades. The little girl who was terrified by spirits became a woman imprisoned by anxiety, who found love and lost it to fame, who built a career helping others heal while struggling to heal herself. At 58, she's learned that survival sometimes means accepting loss, embracing uncertainty, and finding new sources of joy even when the old ones disappear. Whether you see Theresa Caputo as a gifted medium or a skilled performer, her human story is compelling. She's proof that even when life strips away everything you thought defined you, it's possible to rebuild, to love again, and to find purpose in serving others. That might be the most authentic message she's ever delivered.